The Zalthari fleet came out of nowhere. 9,900 warships appeared at the edge of the solar system, like a swarm of metal locusts. Each ship was massive, bigger than any mountain on Earth, and they all hung in the darkness of space with deadly purpose. Commander Vexithar stood on the bridge of his flagship and smiled. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds across thousands of years. Earth would just be another easy victory. His three eyes gleamed as he looked at the blue planet in the distance. His officer ran a quick scan and reported back. The humans had basic technology: chemical rockets, simple nuclear weapons, primitive computers, nothing that could threaten the mighty Zalthari Empire. Vexthar clicked his insect-like mouth in pleasure. This would be over quickly. These humans had not even left their own solar system yet. They were babies playing with fire, and the Zalthari were about to teach them a hard lesson. But the Zalthari scanners missed something important. Around Earth, hundreds of thousands of satellites were sending out a secret message. The message was simple but urgent. Red alert. Activate all defenses. Get ready for war. Deep underground in Colorado, Admiral Lucas Hammond watched the alien fleet on his screens. His face showed no emotion. He had been waiting for this day for 60 years. Lieutenant Sophie Grant sat at her computer station nearby. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as she tracked the enemy ships. She said the aliens were holding position near Neptune, probably studying Earth's defenses. Hammond told her to let them look. He asked how long before the aliens figured out the truth. Sophie checked her data and said about 36 hours. Hammond nodded. Humanity had been preparing since 1947, when an alien ship crashed in New Mexico. That ship had not been exploring. It had been scouting Earth for invasion, but the invasion never came because humans found the ship's computer and learned everything. What they discovered changed Earth forever. The galaxy was a dangerous place. The strong ate the weak. Earth was nowhere near strong enough to survive. So humanity did what it always did. They learned. They adapted. And most importantly, they cheated. Hammond sent orders to all defense stations. He told someone to wake up Dr. Kate Morrison. It was time to see if her theories would actually work in battle. On the moon, at a secret research base, Kate Morrison was already awake. She had been working for 37 hours without sleep. Her assistant Danny Price brought her coffee and told her the Admiral wanted to talk. Kate did not look up from her work. She told Danny to inform the Admiral she was busy saving the world. The energy pattern she was working on needed to be perfect, or everyone would die. Sophie announced back in the command center that the alien fleet was moving. At their current speed, they would reach Mars in 18 hours. Hammond said that was good. He told his people to launch the decoys. From hidden bases all across the solar system, thousands of drone ships shot into space. Each one sent out heat signals and radio waves that looked exactly like real warships. To the Zalthari sensors, it appeared that Earth had been hiding a massive battle fleet. Vexthar watched in shock as 4,000 human ships suddenly appeared on his screens. His officer said the ships had been completely hidden. Their sensors had detected nothing until now. Vexthar hissed that it was impossible. These primitive humans did not have cloaking technology. His officer insisted the ships were there and moving to attack. For the first time in centuries, Vexthar felt uncertain. Maybe this conquest would not be as easy as he thought. He ordered his fleet to change formation and prepare weapons. If the humans wanted a fight, the Zalthari would destroy them completely. But as the alien fleet moved forward, they did not notice the real threat. It was not the fake ships rushing toward them. It was the invisible network of satellites they were passing through. Each satellite was silently recording every detail about the Zalthari ships, their weapons, their shields, their communication frequencies, everything. In her lab on the moon, Kate Morrison smiled as data filled her computer screens. She whispered that she had them now. The first battle started when the sun rose over Earth. The Zalthari fired first. Blue beams of deadly plasma shot toward the human fleet. The beams should have destroyed everything they hit. Instead, the beams passed right through the human ships. The ships flickered and disappeared like ghosts. They had been holograms all along. Vexthar snarled in anger. He ordered his ships to find the real human vessels. But there were no real ships, not the kind the Zalthari expected. Humanity had learned an important lesson from that old alien database. You do not fight a stronger enemy using their rules. You make your own rules. The first real attack came from the asteroid belt. Humans had hollowed out dozens of large rocks, filled them with nuclear bombs, and aimed them at the alien fleet with perfect accuracy. The Zalthari defense systems destroyed most of the rocks, but 17 got through. Nuclear explosions lit up space as the bombs hit alien shields. The damage was small, but it made Vexthar realize he had made a mistake. These humans were smarter than he thought. He ordered his fleet to destroy the entire asteroid belt. The Zalthari ships fired enough weapons to kill a planet. Billions of tons of rock turned to dust in seconds. In the command center, Sophie winced. Several mining bases had just been destroyed. Hammond said coldly that those losses were acceptable. The miners had been evacuated 2 days ago. He asked how much energy the aliens had used. Sophie reported they had spent about 8% of their total firepower. Hammond said that was good. He told his people to make the aliens spend more. He ordered the second wave to launch. From the ruins of a moon near Jupiter, 1,000 missiles erupted into space. These missiles were different. They had simple jump drives that let them appear and disappear randomly. The Zalthari could not track them properly. The alien fleet found itself dancing around threats that materialized from nowhere. More ships took damage. The damage was still small, still manageable, but the Zalthari were getting frustrated and scared. Vexthar spat that the humans fought like cowards. Where were their warriors? Where was their honor? His younger officer, Kixtal, said carefully that maybe the humans were smarter than the Zalthari thought. Vexthar hit him across the face for saying such things. Vexthar ordered his ships to prepare their biggest weapons. They would bombard Earth from orbit and end this war immediately. But as the massive cannons began charging, something went wrong. Communication systems across the Zalthari fleet started failing. Ships lost contact with each other. Targeting computers showed fake images. Navigation systems gave wrong information. On the moon, Kate Morrison leaned back in her chair. She was exhausted but happy. She said Phase 1 was complete. The entire alien network was compromised now. Danny Price looked at Kate with pure amazement. She had just hacked an entire alien fleet. Thousands of warships all at once, Kate corrected him. She had not hacked them. She had infected them. There was a difference. Every signal the aliens had sent since entering the solar system had carried tiny pieces of code. The code was so small the Zalthari never noticed it. Now all those pieces activated together. In the alien fleet, complete chaos broke out. Ships fired on each other by mistake. Navigation systems sent vessels crashing into one another. Life support flickered on and off. Communication systems went dead, so commanders could not coordinate any response. 300 ships were destroyed in 5 minutes. Not by human weapons, but by friendly fire and system failures. Vexthar watched his fleet tearing itself apart. For the first time in his long life, he felt real fear. He screamed at his crews to shut down all systems and switch to manual control. But it was too late. The damage was done. The Zalthari had wasted precious time and energy fighting themselves instead of fighting the humans. Hammond watched the destruction on his display. He felt no joy, only determination. He asked Sophie how many alien ships remained. She reported 9,600 ships. Still more than enough to destroy Earth completely. Hammond said they needed to move to Phase 2. He told Sophie to contact Captain Ryan Hughes and give him permission to attack. In orbit around Earth, aboard a hidden carrier ship called Sanctuary, Captain Ryan Hughes received his orders. He felt both excited and terrified. He told all his pilots that this was real. They were cleared to engage the enemy. The fighters that launched from Sanctuary did not look like normal aircraft. They were tiny, barely bigger than a person. They moved with impossible speed and agility. No human pilot could survive the forces these machines could pull. That was because no humans were inside them. The fighters were controlled remotely by pilots safe on Earth. Their minds were connected to the machines through neural interfaces. Humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or weapons. It was their ability to think differently. The Zalthari expected honor and traditional space battles. They were going to face guerrilla warfare and psychological attacks instead. The small fighters dove into the Zalthari formation like angry wasps. They were too small and too fast to target effectively. They fired precise shots at shield generators, sensor arrays, and weapon systems. They did not try to destroy ships. They just disabled them, turned them into floating junk that complicated the alien formation. Kate Morrison's virus kept spreading through the fleet at the same time. The Zalthari technology was turning against them. By the end of the first day of fighting, the Zeltari had lost 1,000 ships. They had not managed to fire a single shot at Earth. Vexthar stared at his screens in complete disbelief. Somehow these primitive humans were winning. The Zeltari fleet pulled back to Mars orbit. They were battered but far from defeated. Vexthar ordered a complete shutdown and restart of all computer systems. This purged the human virus but left his fleet vulnerable for 6 hours. His fleet was now down to 8,600 ships. That was still enough firepower to turn Earth into a ball of molten rock. Vexthar announced to his officers that there would be no more games. They would advance in tight formation with maximum shields. All non-essential systems would stay offline. When they reached Earth, they would burn it from orbit. He no longer cared about conquest. He wanted these humans erased from existence. Back on Earth, Hammond listened to intelligence reports with growing worry. The aliens had adapted faster than expected. Sophie said they would reach firing range in 8 hours. This time the formation was too tight for missiles to penetrate. The virus had been purged from their systems. Hammond looked at the tactical display showing the massive fleet approaching his world. He made the decision he had been dreading. He told Sophie to activate the defense grid. All around Earth, weapons that had been built over 60 years began powering up. They had been hidden among civilian buildings and infrastructure where the aliens would not look. The crashed alien ship had provided blueprints for energy weapons far beyond human technology. Humanity had spent 6 decades trying to understand and copy them. They had not fully succeeded. The weapons humans built were crude and inefficient. They had a bad habit of overloading and exploding. But they worked well enough, and humanity had built thousands of them. Sophie reported the grid was online. All stations were ready to fire. She warned Hammond that the power drain would be massive. They were talking about continent-wide blackouts. Hammond said people could live in the dark. They could not live under alien rule. He told her to fire when ready. From the surface of Earth, from orbital platforms, from the moon, from hidden bases throughout the solar system, beams of pure energy shot toward the approaching fleet. They were not as powerful as Zeltari weapons, but they did not need to be. They just needed to be numerous enough to overwhelm the alien shields through sheer volume. The first wave caught the Zeltari completely by surprise. Their shields held but barely. The energy drain was enormous. The second wave hit before shields could fully recharge. The third wave started punching through. Ships began dying. Not 1 or 2 at a time, but dozens. The tight formation Vexthar thought would protect them became a trap. Disabled ships crashed into their neighbors, creating chain reactions of destruction. Vexthar commanded all ships to break formation and scatter. They needed to get close enough to fire back at Earth, but humanity had planned for that too. As the fleet scattered, they entered range of thousands of conventional weapons, missile batteries, nuclear torpedoes, and converted civilian cargo ships loaded with nuclear bombs and piloted by volunteers who knew they would not survive. Captain Ryan Hughes watched from Sanctuary as a cargo ship called Betty Lou accelerated toward a Zeltari battleship. He had known the pilot, a woman named Claire Nash. She had hauled supplies to Mars for 20 years. She was a grandmother with 5 grandchildren back on Earth. Ryan whispered a farewell as the ship detonated. Its 50-megaton nuclear warhead cracked the battleship's hull and sent it spinning out of control, completely disabled. All across the battlefield, humans were making the same choice. They sacrificed themselves not for glory or honor, but simply because someone had to do it. Every alien ship they destroyed was one less threat to Earth. One less chance humanity would be wiped out. The Zeltari could not understand this. They valued individual survival above everything else. They were fighting an enemy that viewed death in battle not as failure, but as an acceptable cost. Kickstal breathed in shock as he watched another human ship detonate itself against their shields. He said the humans were insane. They were winning by dying. Vexthar said nothing. His mind raced trying to find a strategy against an enemy that did not fear death. The battle continued for 6 more hours. The defense grid fired until the machinery melted and power grids collapsed across Earth. Human pilots fought until their ammunition ran out, then crashed their ships into enemy vessels. Missiles launched until every magazine was empty. When the smoke cleared, the Zeltari fleet had been reduced to 5,000 ships. In the command center, Hammond collapsed into his chair. He suddenly looked every one of his 72 years. Casualty reports were coming in. Thousands of people dead, entire orbital stations destroyed. The defense grid was mostly scrap metal now. They had used 90% of their ammunition and weapons. Sophie tried to find hope in the numbers. She said they had hurt the aliens badly. The Zalthari had lost almost half their fleet. Hammond replied that humanity had lost almost everything. If the aliens attacked again right now, Earth could not stop them, but the Zalthari did not attack. Instead, they did something no one expected. They retreated not far, just back to Mars orbit. They held position there and made no further moves toward Earth. Sophie asked why they would do that. The aliens still had superior numbers. They could finish the war. Hammond studied the display. His tactical mind worked through the possibilities. He said the Zalthari retreated because humanity had hurt them. They came expecting an easy conquest and found a real war. For the first time in their history, the Zalthari were afraid. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Vexthar was indeed afraid, though he would never admit it out loud. He had sent an urgent message back to Zalthari High Command explaining the situation. Their response had been immediate and harsh. Finish the conquest or do not bother coming home. Vexthar wondered if conquest was even possible anymore. Every computer analysis said yes. 5,000 ships could still overwhelm Earth's remaining defenses. But every analysis had been wrong so far. These humans kept finding ways to surprise him, to hurt him, to make him pay for every inch of space. Kixtal spoke carefully. He suggested they consider negotiating with the humans. Vexthar said the High Command would execute them just for suggesting such a thing. But he did not dismiss the idea completely. They might propose surrender terms to the humans, make them think they had a choice. What Vexthar did not know was that back in Earth's command center, Admiral Hammond was thinking the exact same thing. A message came on all frequencies in perfect English. The Zalthari told the humans they had fought bravely, but the outcome was inevitable. Surrender now and they would allow humanity to survive as a client race. Refuse and they would burn Earth to ashes. Humanity had 12 hours to decide. Hammond listened to the message 3 times. Then he looked at his exhausted staff. He asked what their actual chances were if the aliens attacked again. Sophie pulled up the computer projections. If they used every remaining weapon, every ship, every last resort option, they might destroy another 1,000 alien ships, maybe 1,500 if they were lucky, and the aliens made mistakes. That would leave the Zalthari with 3,500 ships, more than enough to destroy Earth. Hammond rubbed his tired eyes. He asked about something called the Perkins Protocol. The room went completely silent. Everyone knew about the Perkins Protocol. It was the final last resort that no one had seriously considered using. Dr. Kate Morrison had been brought to the command center. She spoke up and asked if Hammond meant causing a solar ejection. She said the calculations alone would take weeks. Even if they succeeded, the radiation would devastate Earth. They would be trading alien invasion for extinction by their own hand. Hammond said quietly that it would take the Zalthari with them. Colonel Marcus. Lee had been listening from his command post. His voice came over the speakers. He asked if that was really what humanity wanted, to go down as the species that chose mutual destruction over survival. Hammond shot back asking what kind of survival they were talking about. The alien said client race. That meant slavery. That meant the end of human freedom and independence. Maybe extinction was better than that. Kate said slowly that there might be another option. It was crazy and probably would not work, but everything else they had tried had been crazy too. Hammond told her he was listening. Kate pulled up her personal files on the main screen. Complex equations and energy diagrams appeared. She explained that the alien database they had been using contained coordinates for a Zalthari listening post about 6 light-years from Earth. The post monitored their conquered territories for signs of rebellion. If humans could reach it and hack it, they might be able to send a signal to other species the Zalthari had conquered. Sophie asked what that would accomplish. Kate's eyes gleamed with desperate hope. She said they could tell everyone that Earth was winning. Tell them humans were proving the Zalthari could be beaten. Start a galaxy-wide rebellion. The Zalthari Empire was huge, but they maintained control through fear. Show that the fear was not justified and the whole thing might collapse. Hammond considered the plan carefully. He asked how they would even reach this listening post. Humans did not have faster-than-light travel capability. Kate said the Zalthari did have that technology. She brought up diagrams of a ship they had captured after Kate's virus disabled it. The destroyer had crashed on the moon but was mostly intact, including its jump drive. She said if Hammond gave her a crew in 48 hours, she could get it working. Marcus pointed out that would be a one-way trip. Even if they succeeded, they would be stranded 6 light years from home with no way back. Kate said firmly that she guessed she had better succeed then. Hammond looked at this brilliant young scientist who was volunteering to fly into enemy territory with almost no chance of survival. He asked if she truly understood what she was proposing. This was not like the defense grid or the orbital fighters. No rescue would be coming. Kate said she understood completely. But if they did nothing, they lost anyway. At least this way they might take the Zalthari Empire down with them. Or better yet, free every species the aliens had enslaved. Hammond made his decision. He told Kate she had her 48 hours. He reassigned Captain Ryan Hughes to pilot the alien ship. He told Sophie to work with Kate on selecting a crew. And he told someone to open a communication line with the Zalthari fleet. They needed to buy time. The next 2 days passed in a blur of activity. Kate and her team worked around the clock to make the captured destroyer operational. The task was incredibly difficult because of the alien technology and battle damage. Captain Ryan Hughes studied the controls, learning to fly a ship designed for beings with 3 arms and compound eyes. Meanwhile, Hammond engaged in the longest negotiation of his life. He strung the Zalthari along with promises of discussions about terms and conditions. Anything to delay their inevitable attack. Vexthar knew he was being stalled, but he allowed it. Every day of negotiation was a day his crews could repair battle damage. A day he did not have to send more soldiers to their deaths. He told himself he was being strategic. But the truth was simpler. He had come to respect these humans. They fought like demons and died without hesitation. It seemed wrong to exterminate such a species. But orders were orders. The High Command was growing impatient. On the moon, the captured destroyer was rechristened Defiant by its human crew. The engines powered up for the first time in months. The crew was small, only 8 people including Kate and Ryan. The others were specialists, engineers, a communications expert, and a soldier named Alan Cruz who jokingly called himself Security. Alan said as they prepared for launch that this was either the bravest thing humans had ever done or the stupidest thing. Ryan replied from the pilot's seat that it could be both. He asked if everyone was strapped in securely. Everyone confirmed they were ready. Kate sat at what she hoped was the navigation console and began entering coordinates. She opened a channel to Earth. She told Admiral Hammond that Defiant was ready for departure. Hammond's voice came back over the radio. He said they were cleared for launch. He told Kate that if this worked, she would have saved not just Earth, but potentially hundreds of alien species. If it did not work, well, at least she gave humanity a fighting chance. Kate said they would make it work. She signed off. The ship rose from the lunar surface. Alien engines created a field of distorted space that made it look like reality was bending. They accelerated smoothly, heading away from Earth, away from the battle, toward empty space where they could safely engage the jump drive. The Zalthari detected the launch, but Vexthar dismissed it as unimportant. One small ship fleeing the battle, probably full of refugees or cowards. Let them run. It changed nothing. When Defiant reached the jump point, Kate activated the drive. Reality twisted around them. For a moment that felt like forever and like an instant at the same time. The crew experienced what it meant to move faster than light. Then they were gone, racing toward their destination and whatever fate waited for them there. Back on Earth, Hammond closed the communication channel and returned to the command center. He said that was done. Now they had to wait and see if miracles actually happened. Sophie asked what they would do if no miracle came. Hammond said they would fight to the last human and make sure the Zalthari remembered them forever. 12 light minutes away at Mars orbit, Vexthar ended his negotiations and gave the order his entire fleet had been waiting for. He told all ships to advance on Earth with maximum firepower. He said to end this war, the final battle was about to begin. The Zalthari fleet moved as one massive unit. 5,000 ships accelerated toward Earth in a formation designed to maximize shield overlap and concentrated firepower. They had learned from their mistakes. This time there would be no clever tricks or surprises. just overwhelming force applied with ruthless efficiency. Sophie reported unnecessarily that the aliens were coming. Everyone in the command center could see the display. They could see the wall of death approaching their planet. Hammond stood perfectly still. His mind calculated angles and possibilities. Earth had one final card to play. One last desperate trick. He gave the order to execute Operation Last Light. All across Earth, in bunkers and hidden facilities, civilians who had volunteered for this moment received their orders. They powered up the weapons they had been given. Modified mining lasers and industrial tools. Devices that had no business being in a space battle but were all that remained. They aimed them at the sky. Sophie said the civilian volunteers were reporting ready. Her voice cracked slightly. 200 million people with weapons that might not even penetrate alien shields. Hammond said might was better than nothing. Even if each person only fired once, that was 200 million shots. The Zalthari would have to deal with every single one. The first wave of civilian fire shot into space. A forest of energy beams that looked pathetically weak compared to military-grade weapons used earlier. But there were so many of them. The sheer volume of fire created a barrier the Zalthari had to navigate through. Their shields blazed as they absorbed hit after hit. On the surface, Lisa Morgan fired her laser until the power cell died. She was a schoolteacher from Kansas. Her 70-year-old father Jake stood beside her, feeding her charged power cells. His hands were steady despite the fear in his eyes. Lisa whispered with each shot that it was for her grandchildren. For their future. Across every continent, millions echoed her words. They were not soldiers. They had no training, but they were humans defending their home. They would not go quietly into the night. The Zalthari advance slowed, not because they were in danger, but because navigating through the densest fire streams took time. Every second they spent was a second Hammond's people used to coordinate the defense. Hammond ordered the deployment of all remaining fighters. Every ship they had left. He wanted everything in the sky. The last squadron of human craft launched from hidden bases, scratched together vessels crewed by volunteers who knew they were not coming back. Leading them was Commander Ashley Price, flying a fighter held together mostly by hope and welding. Ashley told all wings they were weapons-free. Target the shield generators. Make every shot count. The fighters dove into the Zalthari formation. Their movements were desperate and aggressive. They were not trying to win anymore. They were trying to make the aliens pay for every inch of Earth's sky. Meanwhile, 6 light-years away, Defiant emerged from its jump near the Zalthari listening post. The transition was rough. Half the crew felt sick and disoriented, but they were alive and, more importantly, undetected. Kate reported she was scanning the station. It was automated with no crew. Good news was they did not have to fight anyone. Bad news was the security systems were significantly more advanced than the ship systems they had been practicing on. Ryan brought Defiant in close, using minimal maneuvering thrusters to avoid detection. He asked how long before Kate could crack the security. Kate said if everything went perfectly, 3 hours. Realistically, 6 hours. That was assuming the security did not detect them and fry their systems. Alan checked his weapons and said they had better hope for perfect. Earth did not have 6 hours. Kate connected her portable computer to the station's external ports. She used access codes extracted from the captured destroyer's database. The Zalthari security system immediately tried to lock her out and trigger countermeasures. She countered with her virus, modified and enhanced for this specific purpose. She announced she was in. The message package was uploading now. The message was simple but devastating. Video footage of the battle. Casualty reports showing Zalthari losses. Tactical analysis proving that humans, a species without faster-than-light travel, were successfully resisting the mighty Zalthari armada. And most importantly, coordinates of Earth and an open invitation. If humans could resist, so could anyone. Kate reported the upload was complete. The message was broadcasting on all Zalthari frequencies. Every conquered world in their empire would receive it within hours. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. Whatever happened now, they had given everyone hope. Back on Earth, the battle had reached its peak. The Zalthari fleet had pushed through the civilian barrage and was now in orbit. Their weapons were charging for the bombardment that would end human civilization. Vexthar watched the blue planet below. This world that had cost him so much. He felt something unexpected, regret. He gave the order to target population centers and fire when ready. But before the weapons could fire, every console on every Zalthari ship began screaming alerts. Communications from High Command, from conquered worlds, from listening posts across the Empire, all delivering the same message: rebellion, uprisings, worlds, seeing the human resistance and deciding they too would fight. Kixtal reported they were receiving news of attacks on Zalthari forces in 6 sectors. Disbelief was clear in his voice. The Kryn were rebelling. The Threxians had destroyed their occupying garrison. The Molari had declared independence. Bexthar stared at his screens as his empire began crumbling around him. Centuries of conquest undone because one primitive species had dared to fight back and inspired others to do the same. The communications officer said new orders had arrived from High Command. All forces were to return immediately to defend core territories. Earth was considered a loss. Bexthar could not believe it. They had 5,000 ships in orbit. They could still end the humans. Kixtal spoke with respect but firmly. He asked if they really could end Earth. He gestured to the tactical display showing their casualties and the strategic situation. If they stayed to finish Earth, they would lose a dozen worlds. If they left now, they might save the Empire. Bexthar knew his officer was right, but the admission burned. To come so far, to lose so much only to retreat without victory. The shame would follow him forever. He gave the order. All ships prepare for jump. They were going home. Kixtal asked if he meant all ships. Bexthar looked at his fleet roster. 5,000 ships had survived the battle, but how many were actually combat effective? How many could make the long jump back to Zalthari space? He said all ships that were capable of jumping. The rest would remain here disabled, as monuments to human resistance. In the end, only 17 ships were functional enough to make the journey home. 17 ships from an armada of 9,900. As the Zalthari fleet jumped away, leaving disabled hulks drifting in Earth's orbit, the command center erupted in cheers. People were crying, hugging, laughing with the relief of those who had faced certain death and somehow survived. But Admiral Hammond did not celebrate. He was thinking about the cost. The thousands who had died, the planet's infrastructure in ruins, the long recovery ahead. Sophie approached him quietly. She said they had just received a transmission from Defiant. The mission had succeeded. The message was spreading across the galaxy. Hammond nodded slowly. A handful of people on a suicide mission had saved all of humanity. He activated the communication channel. He told Defiant they had done it. The Zalthari were retreating. They could come home now. Kate Morrison's voice came back, tired but happy. That was wonderful news. But there was a problem. Their jump drive had been damaged during the hack. They could not make it back to Earth. Hammond said they would send ships to rescue them. It might take time, but they would bring the crew home. Kate's voice was firm. She said no. Hammond needed every resource to rebuild Earth, not to mount a 6-year rescue mission. Besides, the crew had been discussing it. They thought they might be more useful out in the galaxy. Hammond asked her to explain. Kate said the Zalthari Empire was collapsing, but that did not mean the threat was over. Someone needed to explore the galaxy, make contact with other species, build alliances. Someone needed to be humanity's representatives to the stars. It might as well be them. Ryan's voice joined the channel. He agreed with Kate. They had come this far. They might as well see what else was out there. Besides, the ship had weapons. There were a lot of former Zalthari slaves who might need help. Hammond felt emotion rising in his throat. He asked if they understood they might never see Earth again. Kate replied that they carried Earth with them when they left. Now they would carry it to the stars. That was enough. Hammond closed his eyes and composed himself. He told them to go with humanity's blessing, show the galaxy what humans were made of. Kate said they would. Defiant signed off. 3 months later, Earth had begun to rebuild. The disabled Zalthari ships provided technology that would advance human civilization by centuries. The threat of invasion had passed, though humanity now knew they were part of a much larger and much more dangerous universe. Admiral Hammond stood at the monument built for the fallen. He read the names of thousands who had given everything. At the center was a special memorial for the crew of Defiant. They were listed not as dead, but as explorers, pioneers carrying humanity's spirit beyond the stars. Sophie approached holding a data device. She said they had received another transmission from Defiant. The crew had made contact with 3 liberated species and established a coalition. Apparently, Kate had married Ryan in a ceremony that involved zero gravity and a lot of improvisation. Hammond laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. Of course she did. He told Sophie to send their congratulations. Add a message telling them Earth remembers. Humanity would be joining them out among the stars once they were ready. Tell them to save Earth a place. As Sophie left, Hammond looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Defiant was flying. 8 humans who had become legends. They had faced impossible odds and changed the fate of a galaxy. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not weapons or technology. It was their refusal to surrender, their willingness to sacrifice, their ability to inspire others to fight for freedom. The invasion had started with 9,900 ships. Only 17 returned to tell the tale of the species that should have been easy prey, but instead became the spark that freed a galaxy. And Earth, battered but unbroken, began its journey toward the stars. Ready to stand alongside the civilizations they had inspired, ready to face whatever challenges the universe would throw at them next, because that was what humans did. They adapted, they endured, they survived, and when necessary they fought like hell.